Welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Brandon, and today we are looking at Overlord, one of the potential big boogeymen of the season. And we're diving in with the Salvage bar deck, looking at the level 1 Salvage combo with Shaltir, going into the bar combo that can be brought on early at 2, which is going to be kind of that big, massive Ainz that everybody is keeping an eye on. So to really dive into this, we're going to be looking at the combos themselves really quickly, taking a first look at the Sorcerer King Ainz. This is the Ainz that everyone is trying to keep an eye on as we get towards the season coming up. So the combo itself, if you have the bar in play, on climax placement, if you have another character, you get to do one of the following 3 effects. 1, marker 5 events underneath it, or 2, remove all markers from this card to send to memory, and then remove the number of characters from your opponent's board. Send them all to waiting room. You choose a number of characters equal to the number of markers, but since you can have up to 5 markers, you could remove the full board. The last ability being burn 1, and then this card gets 2,000 power. Notably, when you have the climax in place, in addition to one of those 3, you also heal. At 2, that first turn is going to be markering, getting all those markers underneath this combo. So that way on your second turn, you can send all of the markers into memory. At the beginning of Encore Step, as long as it's in memory, you can pay 1, pitch 1 to burn 1. And you can do that each time one of those markers is in memory. So effectively, what this looks like, with that first turn, you marker up. You only really need 1 Ainz on board for that. Second turn, multiple Ainz on board, multiple heals, as well as one of them sends the markers to memory and the rest deal burn 1s. That is a pretty significant damage dealing. And the fact that you can kind of repeat that based on the number of markers and cards in hand that you have is actually pretty crazy. And in addition to that, every time you slam climax, you're healing. This can also get really big with the back row as well. There's a back row piece that allows it to combo with this. So again, when you're comboing with this, you have the climax in play. You give it 4,500 power, and it can't be targeted during your opponent's turn. So it can't level down, it can't anti-change, they can't do anything to the card on their turn. So your card's basically guaranteed to live. Gains additional power to be crazy big, so it's killing everything across the board. Level 3, so it's very difficult to side around it. It becomes this big, massive body that's basically untouchable, that can constantly heal every turn. Which is pretty crazy, right? It's pretty crazy effect to be able to do that. Being able to pair this with defensive tools like a tap counter, try to spawn as many heals in at 2 as possible. Being able to constantly spam heals at 2, so you can try to continually stay at 2 as long as possible, is the intent with this deck. And every time you're able to get that climax back to hand, you're able to loop those heals with those cards sticking around longer and longer. It is a pretty deadly combo, being able to put all those things together all at once, and all at level 2. To get there, that does require a bit of resources, right? Being able to discard 5 cards from hand in addition to playing the combo, in addition to all the other things. It costs quite a bit. To get there, we run the level 1 Shaltir combo. So the combo itself is an on-reverse salvage. You can then also time machine it, so you can send it to memory and then spawn it back to stage at the beginning of your next turn. So while the character is not on field, you will be getting it back. So it's essentially +2, right? Because you're saving a card on field and then saving a card to hand. So you're able to salvage the piece that you need to keep going forward, and it spawns back an attacker for the next turn. So you can, that way, as you get to 1, you're able to spawn this out, slam the climax, and go to be able to get extra resources, as much resources as possible, so you can continue to have attackers besides those Ainz. So you're able to save cards as effectively as possible. It's also on a salvage trigger, so you can get characters to hand. But that also pairs with the back row piece as well. The back row is with the back row Shaltir, that when you reverse a character, you're able to give power to another character, so that way you can continually get more and more reverses, trying to help guarantee that combo as effectively as possible. It also has the ability to clock yourself from waiting room up to 3 times in a turn to draw a card. So it's another way to be able to clock yourself +1 to hand without paying out stock. So it's another way to get those card resources to hand to pay out for your Ainz. With that in mind, let's look at the deck overall. Starting off, we have the Aura at level 0. On play, gets 1,500 power, so it sits at 3k cross turn, and there's also Fuka effect, right? That when it goes from stage to waiting room, you can discard a card, look at the top 4, choose a level 1 or higher, and add it to hand. Or place the card on stage, filtering out your hand a little bit to get a card that you want for the next level in the game. Level 1 and higher is actually going to be pretty helpful with this deck, because you're going to try to speed into level 2 as quickly as possible, and then try to stall out a 2 for as long as possible. That's kind of the idea behind this deck. So to be able to help get that mill early, get those filtering tools to get the cards you want into hand for that stage in the game, this is exactly what you're looking for. We also then run the Demiurge as well. On play, mill 3. It's up to you whether you want to actually mill the 3 or not. Especially in first deck, you're probably milling those 3 cards. If you want to get through a deck a little bit faster, playing this alongside the Fuka is going to be potentially 7 cards immediately right there. Being able to play over the Fuka with this card is going to be pretty helpful. It's also the Climax swap, so you're able to get the Climax you need into hand. So if you get that Salvage into hand and you want Bar, switch it out. More likely it's in reverse, switching the Bar into the Salvage at 1 to be able to get that additional +2 off. We also run this Ainz. This is the piece that we need with our big combo. This helps get our combo in early. It's a pay 1, ditch a card from hand, and send this to waiting room to spawn the big Ainz on stage. You can only do that at level 2, but that is a pretty effective use of this card as well, because it also has the ability to pay 1, clock yourself at the beginning of your opponent's attack phase to return itself to hand and one of your other characters to hand. So pay 1, clock 1, +2 to hand. It does remove from field, but also would leave your opponent's zeros on field to get reverses with your level 1 combo. So again, potential plussing into hand, clocking yourself to try to get you to 1 and 2 faster. So exactly the kind of profile you're looking to see here. It's a very similar profile to what we saw with the Bell in Danmachi, but it's a very effective tool to get 2 cards back to hand. So this could allow you to potentially reuse your Climax swap or one of the other zeros as well. We have another Ainz at 0. This is the pay 1, pitch 1 to search your deck for a character, so your typical drop search, as well as when it becomes reversed, you can clock yourself from the top of deck, and if you do, look at the top 2 and add a level 1 or lower character or event to your hand. It's an on reverse clock yourself for free, and then a potential +1 to hand. Not as great in regards of plussing, but it does clock yourself, it does potentially add 1 to hand, it does not cost stock, so you're able to save stock in that regard, and it tries to get you to that next level faster. So that potential plus, while it is a more difficult thing to do here, but you can also add an event, I think is actually a really big deal. Being able to add an event and potentially add the event to hand off of this effect is actually pretty well worthwhile, because it has some pretty decent effects from in-hand play as well. So a drop search that can also potentially clock you and give you more cards, exactly what you're looking for. We also run the Vampire Bride card as well, so it can reverse level 0s, so you can just a reverser, it just takes out the opponent's big bodies at 0, but it can also send itself to waiting room from stage to give another character 2,500 power. So if your on reverse combo needs to take on something that's a little bit too big, this can definitely help with that. Then it puts itself in waiting room, which then you can use that level 1 shot to your effect to stuff it into clock and draw another card. So effectively giving a +2/5 power and then clocking yourself to replace it in hand. But that rounds up our level 0 lineup. Going into 1, we already talked a little bit about the back row card. However, it is worth noting that when this is in play, your event, your 1/1 event, is free. Is also a level assist, and then combos with the level 3. So level assist, so try to get your level 1s even a little higher, makes the event free, so you can just spam the event from hand, put it in waiting room, and then be able to combo off with the level 3. Exactly what you're looking for, an assist tool to that combo. It is a pretty crazy effects all on one card, so it allows that also ability to splash the deck and not have to do a bazillion cards to make the same effects go off. With the event, you have Ainz in field to be able to play. Ideally, you want the back row Ainz in play to make it free. So you choose a character and give it 1,000 power, and then we have up to 5 cards with this in name in your deck. It has the ability to be able to choose a character in waiting room, add it to hand, and then give a character 1,000 power. So it's a salvage power pump. You have 5 in your deck, you have to have Ainz in play, but when it's in memory, then the only way it gets to memory is through the combo itself, is with that pay 1, pitch 1 to burn 1 at the beginning of Encore step. Get the potential burn 5 in instances of 1. That's a pretty good way to close somebody out, especially having to do all of your stuff during turn as well. Really capstone piece with a lot of these things going in play. So that's kind of like the package that goes along with that. And the other package being the vampire package. We talked about the level 1 combo and the back row piece that can pump power and draw cards. Going into level 2, we have the Yuri. This is 4 more. It gives 6k power. So it'll sit at 10k at level 2. When placed on stage, you have 2 or more other characters. You may draw 2, ditch 2. So it potentially allows you to draw into Climax as well if you don't have Climax already. And if this is the 5th card you play onto field, so we have at least 4 more other characters on field already, you can stock charge. So effectively making it for free when playing it on stage. So again, saving stock a little bit more that way, so you can use that stock for the burn ones later. So potential free 10k, 1 soul, that can draw, ditch 2 cards. So filter your hand by 2, potentially getting that Climax to keep slamming Climax over and over again. Really useful card in this deck. We also then run the rest counter as well. This is a pay 4, discard 1 rest counter. This is very much that defensive tool, trying to stay at 2 just a little bit longer by slowing down your opponent's attacks incoming in. This also can try to slow down combos at the top. For example, you can target Gura with this at the top. Deny a full lane of Gura is actually pretty significant here. So being able to play that with everything else already in play, especially with a lot of stockless abilities with this deck, you're able to kind of just generate stock pretty quickly in the early game. So when you're able to get this stuff down, you're able to get stuff down even cheaper and quicker. For example, when your Ainz comes in, it's a pay 1, pitch 2, right? So it even costs less stock to be able to get this on field. So a stock-intensive piece to defensively stop your opponent, this is exactly what you're looking for. That rounds out level 2. Level 3, we have our combo itself, and then I also have one of Mare, which can either be a healer, or it can also be 1 card Fumio. So shuffle all their stuff back into their deck except for 1 Climax. So trying to make their deck as thick as possible, trying to be able to stick lots more damage in that way. But that is the deck overall. Realistically, you're really playing into just that kind of 2 main packages of the deck, right? You're playing into the Ainz package, trying to get the Ainz on board and going strong at 2. As soon as you get to 2, and trying to stay at 2 as long as possible with the tap counter, with your other pieces there as well, trying to heal every turn, trying to get that Climax every turn to keep spamming all of the potentials with this deck. You're also then playing it with that Shaltir package, just trying to do that resource generation, trying to get as many resources as possible for that expensive Ainz package. Between these 2 packages, you're able to do quite a bit. It can feel a little bit counterintuitive trying to play into those 2 packages as they're trying to do different things. However, they are really effective at what they do. And effectively what your board looks like, early as level 1, you're looking at that back row Shaltir and the back row of the Ainz, having those both in play ready to go. So that way you can try to generate as many resources as possible at 1, playing into the events as soon as possible at 1. So that way when you hit level 2, ideally before refresh, that way you can get all of those events as markers before you refresh and kind of diving in. It is worth noting that for gameplay wise and playing the game out, especially when you hit level 2, you need to be very careful about anti-change counter. Anti-change counter is one thing that can really shut this deck off pretty hard. So not being afraid to side attack at that first turn with the Ainz combo. Because realistically, you're healing for every copy of Ainz you have on board. You probably have 1, maybe 2 Ainz at 2. Just because it also costs a lot of resources to get there, right? You are at least able to minimum save 1. Ideally, you're saving the one with the markers, and potentially tap countering to be able to keep the other Ainz alive. So that way on that following turn, you can just throw in another Ainz, resource generate up, heal back down because of the heal combo itself, and get all those pieces into your memory and either use them immediately with the resources you have available, or saving that a little bit more for that endgame turn. Like being able to just spam out this amount of damage like crazy on command is pretty intense. So you can kind of play it by ear a little bit, save the resources when you need it, get the pieces you want where you need it as well. Being able to play off of salvage triggers and realistically, you have a lot of chances to be triggering these things into play as well. Triggering climaxes to hand through the bar, or triggering salvage to get the pieces that you need for that following turn, or rest counters that you just played back into hand so you can kind of spam them again. This is exactly what you're looking for in the deck. Ainz gets big. Being able to deny reverses here is pretty big. Being able to get bodies on board that are healers and can be continuous healers for free, with just the exception of slamming climax every turn, is huge. It's something that's pretty well unseen in the world of Weiss as right now. A healer that can stick around almost permanently makes this a very challenging deck to play into. With that in mind, you'll probably be seeing quite a bit of it, especially early as this comes out into the season. There are some counters to this deck a little bit already in play, but something to definitely keep an eye on as the season unfolds, with this deck coming into play within about 2 weeks of release this Friday. We are in that time frame, right? We will see this as early as Chicago. So good luck to everyone out there. Looking forward to seeing what this deck can do as we continue on. Meanwhile, we'll have some gameplay for this on Thursday. We'll have another Clock Talk next week on Tuesday, and some 5 cards, 5 minutes for Overlord on the following Thursday. With that in mind, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube thing, and we'll catch you in the next one.